I thought this would be an easy review, similar to Greatjoy's 50mm review, but adjusting for 35mm. I couldn't have been more wrong. Let's see all that's up with Greatjoy's brand new 35mm 1.8 times anamorphic lens for full frame. From the outside, Greatjoy's 35mm lens bears striking resemblance to their 50mm, which is definitely good. We're pushing the boundaries of budget, anamorphic, and possibility here. As for this is an incredible full-frame covering 35mm T2.9 1.8 times squeeze lens for $1,445 at launch, then $1,700 on retail. A lot of us have bubbles of excitement just thinking about what you can do with it. The 1.8 times squeeze is an established one and a perfect match to the traditional 4x3 film gate that originated the need for anamorphic lenses. It yields perfect 2.39:1 aspect ratio in those circumstances, and it'll do the same if your camera has a 4x3 anamorphic mode. I tried the open gate mode, which worked for the Greatjoy 50mm, but this 35mm really only covers the central 4x3 section of a full-frame sensor. And this lens gives a horizontal field of view just shy of 22mm spherical, which feels super wide. You can see my light in the frame and the edges of the teleprompter. This is a heavy piece of equipment at 1.2 kilograms, or a little over 2.5 pounds, which justifies the placement of a lens support threaded hole. Both focus and iris rings are geared and located in the same position as the 50mm, key aspect in a streamlined set. The front is also consistent with 82mm threads in an 85mm outer diameter, and the front of the lens does not extend or rotate while focusing. The maximum aperture of T2.9 is not the most appealing, and this lens suffers the same challenge that the 50mm did, where you easily get too much stuff in focus. A faster aperture would help with that, but it would also pump up the prices. The iris mechanism displays 11 blades, which help you keeping the out-of-focus areas smooth even as you stop down. I just wonder why you would stop down. Always bring your ND filters and you will be fine at T2.9 with this one. Focus comes down to 0.7 meters or 2'4", highlighted with markings in both metric and imperial scales, while also addressing my pet peeve of fractions of feet markings. Excellent job here. Focus throw is 240 degrees, which is also a great achievement. The feature that sets this 35mm apart from the other budget anamorphics coming out are the mount options though. You can get them in PL or EF mount. Even more, the PL version comes with the necessary pieces to convert it to EF, including a set of screws and shims. You can also get it in the traditional mirrorless mounts L, E, Z, RF, and MFT, although it's hard to see an advantage over PL. Once again, the rear optics protrude quite a bit into the camera, and I'd say don't use this thing with any cameras that have mirrors in them or with focal reducers. And as we set our eyes onto the rear optics, we start to notice something is afoot in this design. The rear element is very clearly cylindrical, making it responsible for part of the squeeze, but it's oriented in such a way that it provides vertical squeeze instead. To enhance this mystery, if you turn the lens around and check the front element, it is as spherical as it gets. I believe the spherical front is part of the design to achieve such wide angle coverage. When I rotate a focus ring from mins to infinity, we barely see any movement inside the lens. So what's going on here? When I reached out to Greatjoy asking for more info on it, all I got was their word about the coatings used on the glass. And, well, that's a relevant bit. Greatjoy continues its trend of non-flaring anamorphics. This one is still very subtle, harder to flare even than the 50mm and their initial adapter. When you manage to get flares though, they are dark saturated blue. In terms of resolution, Greatjoy's 35mm delivers super sharp images across the entire frame, even at minimum focus and wide open. I stay true to my words that you can just lock this aperture ring at T2.9 for life. Distortion is as subtle as it can be for this wide of a lens. Most notably, it is not pincushion, for those of you who despise that. In fact, The distortion on the horizontal axis is incredibly controlled. One more thing on this lens that is unlike the previous 50mm is we no longer use synchro focus, meaning the squeeze stays at 1.8 times regardless of the focus distance. I read somewhere this was a variable diopter design, but looking at the movement inside of the lens, it is hard to tell what's going on. Definitely a win anyway. As cool and wide as this 35mm is, I feel we're starting to hit a threshold of what's interesting. 35mm with 1.8 times squeeze covering full frame is pretty darn interesting, for sure in terms of field of view. Yet, the lens is pretty clean, and because of the T2.9 aperture, we never get a lot of bokeh, not even at minimum focus, which is also pretty good by default. Technically, Greyjoy's 35mm delivers a lot to a modern market. It's a sharp lens, it covers full frame, has all the bells and whistles of a cinema lens, but the price of a modern zoom. I just feel it's lacking in character. Imperfections, flares, chromatic aberration, fast aperture, I don't know what exactly. This doesn't mean the lens isn't super cool, and these shortcomings are more of a personal opinion than a professional one. This wide perspective can be pretty unique for storytelling, but make sure to play into its strengths. Otherwise, you will end up with something that could have been filmed in spherical. Here's a few comparison shots of Greyjoy's 35mm versus a contact size 21mm cropped to the same aspect ratio, so they roughly match in field of view. All of this on full frame, of course. I'm now curious to see a longer lens in the set, and how it will blend with this one and the 50mm, plus push the anamorphic look further. I'm also curious to hear your thoughts on this lens and what's so appealing about really wide anamorphics. So hit the comments below. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll see you on the next one. Tjute for Hadungs.